Maybe if I unmute my microphone, you all can hear me, right? I was just bitching about how difficult it is to go live on Twitter. Because when you go live, it creates
Maybe
a
if
whole
I
new...
unmute my microphone, you all can hear me, right?
broadcast.
I was just bitching about how difficult it is to go live on Twitter. Yeah, so it creates a whole new URL instead of just showing up on my Twitter page. So bear with me while I send out another Twitter X, whatever you call it, deal. It won't matter anyway because Disease X is coming. Have you guys heard about Disease X? Fannie Willis breaks her silence about hiring a dude she was banging to be involved in the Trump trial. She's up in front of a bunch of people in a church saying how you got an echo? Okay, maybe not. All right, good. I think that was me playing on the Twitter thing. All right. Yeah, but good old Fanny, she makes mistakes apparently. I'll play the video. It's funny to watch. We're going to talk about Disease X, of course. Vivek Ramaswamy has shown his true colors. I've been saying this the whole time. You probably haven't heard me say it, so you're probably saying, yeah, right. Yeah, what? Thanks, not me. Probably saying, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, you knew about this, but I knew the whole time. And I'm going to tell you why I knew Vivek Ramaswamy was a dirtbag. I'm going to read you an article about Vivek Ramaswamy that will show you why I thought the way I did about him. The Trump trials, you have those of you, I don't know if you know Robert Reich or not. He's a lawyer, used to be in the Clinton administration. He's now on social media trying to tell you how bad Trump is. A huge proponent of lawfare. And for those of you who don't know what lawfare is, it's using the legal system, essentially, in my opinion, in a terroristic manner or a warlike manner in order to try and prohibit or stop a political opponent. And that's what's happening to Trump right now. Okay, I just sent that Twitter post out. Oh, I see. So what I have to do is I have to take the link and then I have to actually tweet the link and then it shows up on my homepage on Twitter. So those of you who are following me on YouTube, I'm not sure how much longer I'll be allowed to be on there. Because I was going over this yesterday. That also, before I forget, I'm going to be going over a couple of things. I'm starting to see these so-called right-wing pundits like Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin. You know, I've never had a trust in them either, especially Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin was a leftist before. I guess he thought that grifting paid decent money. So now Dave Rubin is working for the Blaze. He's Benny Johnson. Not sure who he works for, but seems to be a popular right-wing guy too. Is now jumping from looking like he's jumping into the camp of Vivek Ramaswamy. A lot of weird things have been happening this weekend. But thanks, those of you who are here tonight. I appreciate you dropping in to listen to me, of all people that you could be listening to. But I think there's less and less people that you can trust nowadays. Like I said, there's some people that I really truly enjoy watching and listening to. Benny Johnson was not one of them. He's always annoyed me. But since we're talking about him, I'll start with that. Laura Loomer, huge fan. She sends a tweet out. So you're endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, doesn't everyone see how obvious this influencer rollout with Vivek's campaign has been? Zero loyalty from any of these so-called MAGA influencers. Who built their brands off of MAGA. And Benny Johnson's one of those guys. Why didn't you campaign for Trump? And apparently Benny Johnson was fired from BuzzFeed. Which is a leftist publication, who I think now is since either defunct or bankrupt, fired for plagiarism, allegedly. And I was just reading about it very quickly before I started the stream tonight. And he's now getting hit by Live PD Dave. He's a pretty popular dude. Mays is also 0 point in doing this unless he's getting paid a lot of money. Well, Vivek Ramaswamy has a lot of money, and I have a feeling that he probably is getting paid. The Dirty Sanchez either never backed down, money evaporated, or he broke up with Dave Rubin. Because Dave Rubin was in the camp of Ron DeSantis, and everything that he was posting was anti-Trump and pro-DeSantis. So you could see who these guys really are. You really can't trust anybody on the right. It's hard. It's hard enough to trust people on the, you can't trust anybody on the left, but now you certainly can't trust anybody on the right. And Benny Johnson is now one of them, as far as I'm concerned, that you can't trust. The age of the influencer is ending, and this is the sad thing. There's just no one now that you can really, listen to or trust or go to get decent news. I mean, you still have. I mean, I'm even starting to question a little bit about Alex Jones. I was listening a little bit to his live broadcast before. I have it on now. Things are getting really bad to the point where it's just you don't know who to trust, and you have to go out on your own and do as much research on your own as you possibly can. So anyway, good for Laura Loomer calling out Benny Johnson. I've now confirmed what I've thought of him, and hopefully he is on the way out of here from being a trustworthy pundit. Now I want to go back to good old Vivek here. And this has been kind of making the rounds to where he, I guess, was either, I don't know whether this was a hidden camera deal, whether it was on purpose or what, But here he is talking to someone about voting for Trump, and I'm just going to go ahead and play it for you, because this really is, as far as I'm concerned, is exactly who Ramaswamy is. And then after I play this, I'm going to read you an article about him and why I never trusted him from the beginning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Scared of you, just
They
like
are.
they're scared of Trump.
Oh,
they are scared.
And they will stop at nothing, but we're not going to let them get away with it. I've got fresh legs. I'm not wounded. And they're not going to let this man do it.
You know, when you
This
said
is why I got
eliminate,
in.
that gave me a chill. Because I'm scared.
Because you think it's false or because you think it's true?
I think it's true. I think they will stop at nothing to stop them. Stop Trump.
It's sad, but it's the truth. It's the sad, but it's the truth. So I'm asking you to do your part, and we're going to.
You know, when I
we can
do
do this.
polls,
We
when I
can do
this
this.
poll,
Yeah.
They say, "How do you feel about the United States?" And I say, "I'm worried and I'm fearful."
It's my job that you don't have to feel that way in this country.
But we're losing it.
We're
We're losing it.
It
And
pains
we
me to
need
hear
people.
that.
We need people like you. Young,
We're going to do this,
vibrant.
and that's what our founding fathers were.
Yes.
It's 1776 moment, so I want your support at that Iowa caucus.
And I get emotional.
I'm emotional about this country. I need your support on Monday night. You do this, I'm going to do my part.
Okay, you're picking at my shell. You are.
Yeah.
But you know, I've got
It's
commitments.
about this country. It's about this country. You want to save Trump, you vote for me. I'm telling you
Yeah.
that. You vote for Trump. You're sending
He's
him
a sledgehammer.
No, but you're sending him to his own demise. You're falling into the trap that not only a country's falling in, that he's falling. You want to save Trump, you vote for me. I need your support at the Iowa caucus.
That's a good argument. That's a good argument.
It's not an argument. It's
That was a sentence right there. You want to save Trump, you vote for me. Right there. That was a state. That's all you need to hear.
the truth. Do the right thing for him and for this country. That's
Do
what
the
I'm
right
asking.
thing for him.
I will consider.
Thank you.
That's the first time
For
I've
this
ever
country.
said that, by the way. Because the others,
No, forget that. But this is that's the truth, and I think you know it.
it's also about Trump.
But this is
about
yes,
America.
yes. This is the truth, and what I just told you, I think you know that in your heart to be true. Do the right thing on Monday. That's what I'm asking you for. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Scared of you.
So there you go. Save Trump by voting for me. And then Trump came out with his response. And Trump knows this stuff way ahead of time. I mean, the thing about him, about Trump, is he's several steps ahead of these people. I mean, he's just, I don't know what it is about him, but he just knows. And I'm trying to find on Truth Social his response to no, whether it was today. But he says, I have fresh legs. I'm not wounded. What he's trying to say to that woman is that, okay, yeah, of course the left is going to stop at nothing to try and destroy Trump. We all see that. But time and time and time again, Trump ends up getting through it and winning. These indictments, the left continues to see how many times he's been indicted. 90 times. Well, you can indict a ham sandwich. You can indict anybody. It's obvious what's going on with these trials. They're malicious prosecution, they're selective prosecution, and it's all prosecutorial misconduct. All of it. And they're using the justice system, they're using lawfare, because they've exhausted every other aspect to try and take Trump down. They've exhausted everything, but they can't they they can't do it any other way because they just have nothing. They have nothing to get him on, and so he's going to win. But Vivek Ramaswamy is now showing his cards. This is his way now of saying, look what they're doing to Trump, and he's convincing people that don't know any better to vote for him. He just tried to throw Trump under the bus right there with that comment. So Donald Trump's response: Vivek started his campaign as a great supporter, quote, the best president in generations, etc. Unfortunately now, all he does is disguise his support in the form of a deceitful campaign tricks. Very sly, but a vote for Vivek is a vote for the other side. Don't get duped by this. Vote for Trump, don't waste your vote. Vivek is not MAGA. The Biden indictments against his political opponent will never be allowed in this country. They are already beginning to fall. MAGA. And Vivek Ramaswamy is really, really good at saying all of the right things. I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy is brilliant. But I don't trust him as far as I can throw him at all. And he proved that I'm right today. And let me read this article about how he became a billionaire. I'd say it's standard politics stuff, Kazan, but I don't think I've ever seen really Trump ever do anything like that. You know, so far, and like I've said before, I'm not a huge Trump fan in the sense of his personality. I think Trump is, for personality-wise, is a kind of a dick. But I think he's probably one of the most honest people to ever be president. And I know everybody's going to say, oh, no, he's a liar, this and that. Well, the left wants to make him out to be that way. Has he made mistakes? Yeah, Dave Rubin pointed that out today, because Dave Rubin's a scumbag. This right below is one of the things that he's pointing out. It's a video showing how Trump praised a lot of these people like Milley and other people that he appointed in his cabinet, and then turned around and badmouthed them because they did such a crap job. But he, as a brand new president, he took advice from people, and that advice he shouldn't have taken. He made that mistake of appointing the wrong people to his cabinet and to certain positions. I mean, Milley was one of them. Bill Barr was another. And Bill Barr's that's a whole video in and of itself, man. Bill Barr, just to give you an idea of how deep it goes with Bill Barr said that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. Okay, I don't think any of us here believe that, number one. And then Bill Barr's father was either the headmaster, head of the school that hired Jeffrey Epstein to be a math teacher at the school. They're all interconnected. That's a whole rabbit hole that we can go down. That'd be, I don't know how long of a video or live stream that would be. But let me read this article about Ramaswamy. A political novice and one of the world's wealthiest millennials, Vivek Ramaswamy, has waged a whirlwind presidential campaign, mirroring his meteoric rise as a biotech entrepreneur. And I've read his book, by the way, Woke Inc. And that after I read that, and I read that book probably 2 years ago. And that even then, when I found out that he was running for president, I'm like, I know that guy. And then I had to remember, oh yeah, I read his book. But anyway, to go off on a tangent, on everything from deporting people born in the United States to ending aid to Israel and Ukraine, he consistently displays the bravado of a populist, self-declared outsider. Again, he says all of the right things. Yeah, Trump is Kazan. Trump is awful for sure at picking people, and that's where he needs to do a better job when he gets in. And if he doesn't, he's screwed. I mean, the FBI director was an absolute disaster. I mean, there's just so many things that when it came to picking people, and again, you cannot pick the same people that have always been involved in this stuff. And that's one thing that I hope that he's learned. You would have thought that he would have been smarter than that. But, you know, I don't know. Quote, I stand on the side of revolution, he declares. That's what I'm going to lead in a way that no establishment politician can. In business and politics, though, Ramaswamy has run into skeptics and sometimes hard facts that threaten to derail his ambitions. In the 2024 campaign, the Israel-Hamas war has refocused the Republican Party on foreign policy and exposed just how Ramaswamy's self-declared revolutionary approach puts him at odds with the party's most powerful figures and many of its voters. At Wednesday's primary debate, Ramaswamy joined the rest of the field in supporting Israel's defense, but returned to his practice of not just critiquing his opponents, but mocking them. Ramaswamy skewered Nikki Haley, the former UN ambassador, and Florida Governor DeSantis, who some online sleuths suggest wears lifts in his boots. Remember all that whole thing with, that's kind of died down since it's not many people are even talking about DeSantis now, but they were claiming that DeSantis was wearing boots that had some sort of lift thing in it to make him seem taller, which it's amazing what people focus on. And if he was doing that, it's really weird, but anyway. And then he asked, do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels? Essentially saying that Nikki Haley is a warmonger, and she is part of the military-industrial complex. There's no question. The performance drew eye rolls and derision on the stage when Ramaswamy implied Haley was being hypocritical and criticizing the social media platform TikTok because her daughter has previously used it. The 51-year-old mother of two called him scum. Ramaswamy, an Ohio native who also lives there, has wowed many audiences with his rapid-fire, wide-ranging discourse, and he does. He knows a lot of things. He's a smart guy. He has a good, and I envy people who have that kind of memory. You know, the people that can just have memory recall, like him. It doesn't necessarily make them a good person. It doesn't necessarily make them wise. It makes them smart. It makes them intelligent. It makes them good at recalling information, but it doesn't necessarily make them wise. Yet even some Republican voters who come away impressed are not backing him. And that's why a lot of people, like including Laura Loomer, have said, I'm not going to, you're good. I like what you're saying, but I'm not going to back you. He's among a group of candidates who trail former President Trump and generally fall behind DeSantis in national surveys. And that's, of course, changed since then to where now you have basically the darling of the establishment now, who is Nikki Haley. Ann Trimble Ray, a Republican activist from early Iowa, suggested Ramaswamy exposes his naivete in part with what he said about Israel, but also his inexperience. I don't think that's a fair statement from someone to say that he's naive about Israel. I think there are a lot of people who are probably naive about Israel and Hamas, and there's certainly a lot of people who have taken sides on either side. But unless you're there and you're living it, I think we're all naive on really what's going on over there. And quite honestly, I don't even like talking about it because It's not important to us here. As far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't be spending our money over there. That's their problem. Quote, unless you have had the experience of someone who's had exposure to the briefings, what you communicate is a whole lot of conjecture, said Ray, who is leaning toward backing Haley. This is just I wish I could have skipped through this. This is just a useless person. You're going to say because he hasn't been available to briefings that he doesn't have the experience, he shouldn't be president. Well, Trump didn't either. And then on top of that, you're backing Haley. It just goes to show you're a fucking moron. You don't know what's going on if you're backing Haley. The 38-year-old son of Indian immigrants has spent his adult life as a sort of boastful savior. In business, that meant building a fortune by hyping a drug that ultimately failed. Here's where we get into the juicy stuff. And this is where I don't trust him. In business, that meant building a fortune by hyping a drug that ultimately failed. In politics, it means arguing he can return Trump's America First vision to the White House without the baggage. That last sentence. He wants to be Trump. And his entire campaign is, hey, everybody, I'm Trump in a younger version. And he knew all the right things to say. All the way up until Iowa. He had this all laid out in a plan. This is all strategic. He knew that the best way, everybody else is losing their ass because who's the major first one that we really were paying attention to, that we really even was somewhat on our radar, was Chris Christie. And what was Chris Christie doing? He was constantly bashing Trump. He was too dumb to realize that by doing that, you were going to get nowhere. DeSantis was going to get nowhere. I mean, because he stabbed Trump in the back. The fact that DeSantis even ran for president was basically a spit in the face to Trump in the first place. It certainly was a spit in the face to the voters who voted for him in Florida. I'm one of those guys. So I'm looking at it and saying, you haven't even finished the job in Florida. You certainly haven't fixed the insurance problem that we're dealing with in Florida. You became governor by a razor's edge over a crackhead meth head because of Trump. And you're running for president? You couldn't tell the Karl Rove and all these other scumbags, you couldn't tell them, no, I'm going to wait my turn. Are you that out of touch with reality that what you were going to do was just, it was over from the beginning? But then you have people like Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, and all these guys who are supposedly really in touch with what's going on in politics. And none of them saw this shit coming. This is about as obvious as it gets what's happening right now. And this thing with Vivek Ramaswamy, you could have called it a million miles away. Everybody else, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, the other guys, they didn't really say much of anything because Tim Scott, there was no chance that any of them were going to become president. So they were irrelevant. But when you even Nikki Haley said that she wasn't going to run against Donald Trump, just like DeSantis shouldn't have. I don't think he outright said it, but Nikki Haley said that she wasn't going to run against Trump. That was an automatic, in my opinion, destruction of her campaign there. And they're going to be jostling back and forth about who's going to be, in second place. But Vivek Ramaswamy, the only reason he's been as popular and as likable is because he knows exactly how to manipulate people. And that's all he's been doing this entire campaign, is manipulating people. He just manipulated this woman in this video right here. He just smooth talked her into voting for him. Quote, I consider myself a contrarian. I like to argue, Ramaswamy told the Crimson. This is Harvard's newspaper. Harvard introduced Ramaswamy to the hedge fund class. He interned at Goldman Sachs. I mean, this guy is like the Harvard guy, Goldman Sachs. I mean, every little step of the way, that's no different than any of the other politicians. You know, it's, or people that are kind of like plugged into that whole scene. The most prestigious Wall Street investment house, then won a job at QVT Financial, founded by another Harvard alumnus Dan Gold. Ramaswamy led the firm's pharmaceutical investments. That's where he started kind of learning about pharmaceuticals, or at least the business part of it. Ramaswamy launched his own venture in 2014. He named it Roivant. The ROI standing for return on investment. And again, all this, this is all strategic. And had a clear business model in mind. Buy discount patents for drugs languishing in the development phase, then resurrect them. In his first big move, Ramaswamy used a subsidiary, Axovant, and paid GlaxoSmithKline $5 million for RVT-101, a potential Alzheimer's drug already put through multiple trials and deemed not promising enough to continue. Ramaswamy rebranded it as Interpridine, and despite the earlier studies, touted it as a game changer, a best-in-class drug candidate, quote, unquote, he told the New York Times. During Axovant's infancy, he landed on the cover of Forbes magazine. This guy from the very beginning in his 20s, and by the way, his book, Woke Inc., talks about this is like all the stuff going on, all this woke stuff that he's writing about is during his years as the CEO of this pharmaceutical company. But he buys a drug that GlaxoSmithKline of all, do you think for a second that a company that has a drug isn't going to squeeze every little bit out of it to try and make it work? As much money as they have to spend in R&D, as much money that they have to spend to try and get something out into clinical trials, all the different stuff that they have to do. Do you think for a second that they're going to just let a drug go without exhausting every avenue to try and make it work? I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, $5 million. I mean, that's probably in the grand scheme of things for all of us, $500 for a failed drug. So he's learning how to go to the New York Times, go to Forbes magazine, and hype up something. He's already a master at this. The hype worked. Interpridine never would. Axovant's initial public stock offering in 2015 drew $315 million, the largest ever biotech IPO to that point. And Axovant's valuation approached $3 billion. These are staggering numbers. In 2017, Axovant released more trial results that found the drug ineffective at dampening Alzheimer's symptoms or its advancement. Axovant stock tanked. Ramaswamy, though, had pocketed tens of millions, divesting himself of shares whose value had swelled because of public buy-in. Quote, he pumped up the image and the name so people invested while he was selling out, said Jeffrey Sonnefeld, a scholar at the Yale School of Management who tracks Ramaswamy's business dealings. Quote, that's classic pump and dump. In his 2015 tax return, one of 20 years worth he has disclosed, Ramaswamy reported almost $38 million in capital gains income. He parlayed that into a portfolio now measured in the hundreds of millions, enough to dwarf the $15 million he's loaned to his own campaign. He became a conservative author and cable news regular, mainly as a critic of corporate America's focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So again, he's appealing to all of the right-wing talking points, pain points, all those types of things that people are interested in as a Republican voter. In that role as a candidate, Ramaswamy sidesteps that some of his own interests he invested in Disney, a punching bag for conservatives, are leaders in DEI efforts. And again, he's really good at sidestepping. He's a million times better, I think, than Barack Obama. One of the best talkers we've ever had as a president was Barack Obama by far. But Ramaswamy wrecks him. I mean, he is an absolute talent. And he's somebody who's just very good on his own being a self-promoter. He's a genius self-promoter. That's what he is excellent at. Ramaswamy embraces the notion that he is Donald Trump 2.0. I believe Donald Trump was an excellent president, Ramaswamy said while campaigning in Atlanta. But I do believe that we need to take our America First agenda to the next level, and I think it will take an outsider from a different generation with an actual positive vision. Ramaswamy has promised to pardon the former president if he's convicted of federal crimes, including those related to the Capitol Hill attack on 2021. In one of his earlier books, Ramaswamy called January 6th a dark day for democracy and criticized Trump's abhorrent behavior, assessments he no longer repeats. I don't remember that in the book, but there's more proof right there of who Ramaswamy is. Do you really believe that what Donald Trump did was abhorrent on January 6th? Only if you're a leftist and you believe all the bullshit lies you do. And why aren't you mentioning that now? Because it doesn't make you look good. Because people would be pissed off at you if you criticize Trump in that way. If you outright criticize him for the things that you really were saying before, no one would like you, and you wouldn't have gotten to this point. But Ramaswamy has pulled the trigger at this point now. Being in Iowa, he's thinking, okay, now it's time for me to put it all out there, to enter the next phase of the plan that he's put in place, which is, you need to vote for me in order to save Trump. Ramaswamy advocates deporting the American-born children of immigrants in the country illegally, though they are U.S. citizens under federal law and Supreme Court precedent, which Trump has been talking about that. So he's saying the same thing Trump is. He questions the government's account of 9/11. He knows that's a talking point and that's a hot button issue for conservatives. he's thought of everything. He's called for firing 75% of the federal workforce, which is what a lot of Republican Trump voters want to do. He wants to raise the U.S. voting age. That would never happen. Although it's a great talking point. It should happen, but it won't. Democrats want to lower it. I mean, as soon as you're born, they would probably put a ballot in front of your face and have you sign it. Republicans on the other side, I think you should be more informed and more mature and not a moron to vote, but he thinks of everything. 2 days after Hamas's October 7th attack that killed 1,400 people, Ramaswamy suggested the U.S. withhold aid to Israel until its government detailed plans for Gaza. He plays both sides very, very well. While many conservatives dislike foreign aid, Republican voters align heavily with Israel. And I think that's starting to play out differently now a little bit more. And again, I think there really are no experts on it, but I think as more news comes out and you start to learn, there's a lot more things that are coming out recently and lately that have changed all that, but that's not what we're talking about here. About 4 in 10 Republicans, 44%, say the United States' current level of support for Israel. I'm not going to get into that. He endorsed Israel's right to counterattack. I want to be careful to avoid making the mistakes of the neocon establishment in the past, blah, blah, blah. He talked to Tucker. And he's gone on every single, good for him on doing it. He's gone on literally every single podcast except for mine. He's gone on just so many. It's unbelievable. But again, it's because he is an incredible genius when it comes to self-promotion. But right here, this Axevant, and there's even more regarding this Axevant story. He had his mom, who is a doctor, put her name on research to, and this isn't my opinion, this is the opinion of the article that I read, in order to kind of make the whole Axevant thing, or the intemperdine, look better than it really was. That was the accusation that was made, or the alleged accusation. But leading all the way up to that, being introduced in Harvard, being introduced to Goldman Sachs, getting into the pharmaceutical industry, he saw an opportunity. He took a drug. It would be hard for me to take a drug like that, knowing that it wasn't working, and try and get an IPO on it and make all that money, knowing that it wasn't going to work. I couldn't do that. And you would think that he knew all of that information before it was pumped. And of course, there was even an interview with him talking to Jim Cramer. And as for those of you who don't know Jim Cramer, he is a talking head on CNBC that gets so many things wrong that people essentially have made a meme out of him, an internet meme, that anything that he touts, people will short, and anything that he talks negatively on, people will go long on. They'll buy into. And I believe they talked about this drug with Kramer, and Kramer, of course, in this particular instance, was saying how wonderful it was. I think I have that right, but it might have been another drug, but. All right. So enough about that. The last thing I'm going to talk about tonight is even CNN now has woken up to the fact that these trials, or I don't know, I'm going to do the Fannie Willis's thing. Well, this is related to the trials, but CNN is even acknowledging at this point that these trials are politically motivated. So those people who have been saying, hey, Trump is indicted, up teen times, so he what a criminal he is. Well, he's been indicted. He hasn't been convicted of anything, and we all know that these are all politically motivated, and those that are bringing these charges, including the judges, should be punished for doing what they're doing. But here, listen to this. This is a legal analyst for CNN, who basically tells you what we already know, that these are all politically motivated.
What they were doing, they got paid back. But it is a fact that Letitia James, as Paula Reed said, Letitia James campaigned for Attorney General in 2018 specifically on a promise of vote for me and I'll get Donald Trump. That's not something she said once. She said it dozens of times. She said it in writing. She fundraised off it. And she wasn't even specific. She didn't say, I'll get him for inflating his assets. At one point, she said he could be indicted for money laundering. At one point, she said, the day after she was elected, she said, and I quote, we're definitely going to sue his ass. He'll know my name. And when you make statements like that, how can you say there's no political angle to this? You can maybe say the facts are there, but it's also political. That's Letitia James's own doing.
So what if
what they were doing, they got paid back.
So there you go. Yeah, I think we already knew that. I'm surprised that this guy's ever going to be let back on CNN again after saying that. But of course, that is what this is all about. Letitia James ran on, and the prosecutor before Letitia James, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, he resigned due to really severe, crazy sexual misconduct allegations. And he had also run on taking out Trump. It was like right before or just after he was elected as president. And when Letitia James came in to take his place, she was essentially saying the same thing, that I'm running to take Trump out. So this is all political. This is all prosecutorial misconduct. Fannie Willis, and I know a lot of these are probably hard to even keep track of. There's so many of these trials. But here's Fannie Willis after she was having an affair with this guy, and then took, I think, a couple of grand for of taxpayer funds in order to travel. This guy was involved in Trump's trial somehow. I don't remember exactly how it is, but here she is speaking up now after these allegations have come forth.
All the glory I receive, it's his grace, not a perfect me. We are at a time in history, people. Hear me on this. We are at a time in history when you can no longer sit back and just let other folks do it. You cannot expect black women to be perfect and save the world. The Lord is completing us. We are not perfect. We need your prayers. We need to be allowed to stumble. We need grace. With that kind of support, we will move mountains and do Jesus' will, stumbling all the way. So his flawed, hard-headed, and imperfect child has a message for each of you today. Please find a way to do your extraordinary, God-given assignment and make this community and the world a better place for all of his people. See, it is never about who you are. It is always about the great I am and who he is. See.
All right, it's all gibberish. Do you see a pattern here, though? It's starting to unravel. Yet Vivek Ramaswamy wants to tell you, vote for me because they're going to stop at nothing to try and stop Trump. It would be one thing if Fani Willis wasn't a fucking moron. It would be one thing if Letitia James wasn't a fucking moron. If these leftist lunatic weirdos, if the judge in the Letitia James Engeron wasn't a moron, then I'd probably worry a little bit. But every single time, these lies are, that come, I mean, the Russian collusion, he said that he was racist against Mexicans when he came down the elevator. That was a lie. He built the cages. That was a lie. He colluded with Russia. Another lie. The entire Steele dossier was a lie. The Mueller report came out and exonerated Trump of everything. They said that hookers pissed all over him somewhere in some foreign hotel. Another lie. And the sad thing about it is you have what the quote unquote deep state or globalists, the powers that be, that are trying to destroy him. They're using people like Letitia James and Fani Willis to do these things, so they have plausible deniability. They're not actually going to do it themselves. They're using these pawns, these useless idiots, to do it. But somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy, this is how you know Vivek Ramaswamy is not a good guy, because instead of Vivek Ramaswamy coming out and saying that, knowing that it's true, and saying, hey, we know what the deep state's doing. I think the best thing for us is maybe I should be the VP or be in a cabinet position. He says, Trump is wounded, so you need to vote for me because I'm not wounded. So essentially in battle, and if you were in battle, he'd leave Trump behind because he's dead weight. He'd slow him down. That's what he said to that woman in that video. Nick hasn't. She needs a better PR advisor. She's too stupid to know any better. These are people that, between her and Letitia James, how they got a law degree in the first place and even a law license is beyond my comprehension. At their bottom of the barrel, and they're being used they're being used as useful idiots, and idiots as like the worst of the idiots you could possibly imagine, in order to do this lawfare thing. And here she comes out in front of this church. We cannot expect black women to be perfect and save the world. I love how that statement is made while you're going after Trump on bullshit charges. That you're using lawfare. You are, in my mind, committing a crime, engaging in prosecutorial misconduct. And you're sitting there, we can't expect black women. So now it's about race now. What do we all default to? And all of us are sick and tired of it because we don't buy it anymore. All of us didn't buy it before. But now we're fatigued over this whole thing. We're tired of it. So you're going to say it's going to be a racial thing now because because of the scumbag scandal affair and all the improper use of taxpayer funds. Use taxpayer funds to go on a trip. Now it's racisms. Let's watch now Kevin O'Leary on CNN explain in reality what's going on with the Trump case with Letitia James. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more, probably go over the hour, but this is important to go over.
You've been doing real estate for decades. Does this case strike you as odd?
Well, let's leave out Trump for a minute, and let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million, and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million. And you fight it out. You're always trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you could possibly determine for them. You want them to be worth the very most because you're only going to get a 40 or 50% loan to value, as it's called. Then you borrow that money. In the case of a $500 million asset, maybe you get $250 million, and you build a new building with a construction finance loan. And so that's what this case is all about. And by the way, forget about Trump. Every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, when I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do. This is what they do all day long, every day. So I don't think this thing will ever survive appeal, regardless of what the fine is. This doesn't even make sense. Now, look, I know Trump's got a lot of problems in other indictments and everything else, but this, if you're a real estate developer, you're watching this, you're saying, what is this? This is ridiculous.
The most important part of what he said right there is if you go after Trump, you have to go after everybody in New York. Because they all do this. This is what's considered, and I've been saying this from the very beginning on this particular case. This is selective prosecution. Once again, proving, even on CNN of all places, prosecutorial misconduct. And nobody talks about it. These are the major points of all of this stuff, and everybody gets caught in all this other minutia on all of these other shows. Like, let's just make fun of so and so, and let's play all these funny clips of, and I do the same thing, but like of Biden tripping and falling, and yeah, we all know Biden sucks. We all know Biden's a criminal. We all know that stuff. But why aren't we focusing on the judicial system being taken away from Americans? If you don't have a judicial system, you don't have a country. When you have this Engeron moron, whose wife, by the way, had to shut her Twitter account down because she is such an anti-Trumper that she made Kathy Griffith look like a saint. Let me read this article. And again, I think this one's from ABC. Yeah, ABC News. The other article I think that I read was from ABC too. These are not right-wing Breitbart that people accuse me. I constantly get constantly get people commenting, "Oh, well, you repost Breitbart. You get your news from Breitbart." I love the ones that tell me that I get my news from Fox News. Fox News, who, by the way, just dumped MyPillow, their advertising, because you know that they're bought and paid for by the left, actually, I should say the Uniparty. There's really no left anymore. They're all one giant cabal. But here's an article from ABC that, it's not a bias thing here. It's this proves that what's happening to Trump right now is completely political. Beyond a reasonable doubt. There's nothing in dispute on this after I read this to you. The judge in New York expressed frustration at Donald Trump's defense counsel. This is early on in the trial, when essentially Trump's lawyers were saying, you need to just dismiss this case because it's stupid. This is back in November. A judge in New York expressed frustration at Donald Trump's defense counsel while considering sanctioning the defendants and their lawyers for making frivolous arguments in the state's civil case against the former president and others. When I first heard those those arguments, I thought that was a joke, said Judge Arthur Engoron, who is an anti-Trumper, whose entire family is an anti-Trumper, who are the left of the left of the left when it comes to New York City. Trump can't get a fair trial in New York City anywhere from anyone. You interview 9 people or 10 people, 9 of them are going to tell you that they hate Trump. This guy is one of them. When I first heard those arguments, I thought that was a joke, said Judge Arthur Engoron. If you see this guy, he's such a fucking scumbag, who added that he has repeatedly ruled on and been upheld on some of the arguments rehashed by defense. The rule on sanctions is if you've been warned, don't do it. You were warned, Engoron said. As a lawyer, I have to make the arguments, Trump attorney Chris Kise told Engoron. Kise earlier in the afternoon asked the judge to dismiss the case, this is important, against Trump and the other defendants. What is happening here happens every day in complex business transactions. That's just what Kevin O'Leary just got done saying. In other words, selective prosecution. What is happening here is what happens every day in complex business transactions. Kise said about the vast differences in appraisals for Trump's assets. When Kise argued that no one was harmed by Trump's business dealings, Engoron offered a frank assessment. Now, this frank, quote, frank assessment is written in by the guy who wrote the article because he's a leftist and he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. It's not a frank assessment. This is an opinion. It's a wrong opinion because Engoron's a leftist. He doesn't understand complex business transactions when it comes to real estate. He's a fucking judge in New York City. The fact that no one was hurt, quote, this is the judge saying this, quote, the fact that no one was hurt does not mean the case gets dismissed. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard a judge say. Engoron said, adding that he believes that, quote, fairness in the marketplace, unquote, was a victim of the defendant's actions. I'm going to read that again. Engoron added that he believes, quote, fairness in the marketplace was a victim of the defendant's actions. Now, once again, no one, including Kevin O'Leary, and Kevin O'Leary is an asshole in and of himself, but what he's saying on CNN is absolutely 100% true. The banks were not harmed. In fact, the bank said, we weren't harmed. We were paid back. What's the problem here? And Engeron got angry with the defense lawyers trying to dismiss the case because there wasn't anyone that was harmed. There was no victim in this case. But the judge, because once again, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a justice system. We are using lawfare as a war strategy to defeat an opponent from a political perspective, says that what was harmed was the fairness in the marketplace. Why this is not, you're not gonna hear somebody like Benny Johnson say that, because what Benny Johnson's too busy doing is running around trying to get into somebody's Vivek's pants. I mean, before he was in DeSantis's pants, along with Dave Rubin. But they're like gold diggers. Whoever has the most money is who they're going to run to. Whoever is the most popular, they're going to run to, because that's what keeps them relevant. But none of them are going to focus on this. They're not going to focus on what Kevin O'Leary just said, and then go even deeper and tell you that the judge in this case, who is essentially working with the prosecutor in order to destroy Trump, who ran on a campaign promise to destroy Trump, is telling you that the fairness in the marketplace was the victim of the defendant's actions. And here you have I believe Kevin O'Leary is a billionaire, telling you the truth, as much of a scumbag that he is, the truth of really what happens in these real estate deals. This happens all the time. But that's not what these trials are about. So there you have it for tonight, for Sunday. This Disease X thing, by the way, I hope all of this might be irrelevant if they release another disease to try and kill everybody. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's building bunkers out in Hawaii. Even Biden's building a bunker, from what I understand. And, all this talk in the ether about Disease X has got me concerned because, of course, what happened with COVID. And any of you that are watching on YouTube, come on over to Rumble for the last few minutes that I'm talking. I'm going to shut down the stream. If you're on YouTube right now, go to rumble.com/Dennis Hendrickson. I'm going to shut down YouTube right now.